Welcome everyone to Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and as always I'm joined by my co-host Deucy.
Hello everyone.
Deucy, how are you today?
I am doing good. Still recovering from the sickness. I was surprised that in our last episode I didn't just completely faint at the end.
We had a pretty beefy episode there. I would say.
And my voice held strong. I didn't have any coughs in anybody's ears.
Yeah, mine was getting there. My voice usually holds up. It's just the my nose, which just gets kind of stuffy if I talk too long, which is weird.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty beefy episode. We did 2 hours, a whole 2 hours on the fighting game era of Marvel and X-Men games, which was really fun to go through. Those are all excellent games. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and check it out. It's a beefy episode, but we had a ton of fun doing it.
Definitely want to play more of those.
Definitely, yeah. They're always fun to revisit. Plus, we have that collection coming out soon enough.
Yep.
But for today's episode, we're covering Game Boy games. For us, we just covered Mario Land 2 a couple episodes ago. That was really great when we covered it with our friend Vito, the 8-Bit Barrister. I thought that was a really great episode because we got to visit one of our favorite Game Boy games. And Deucy wanted to cover basically some of our favorite ones ever. And this will also cover Game Boy Color because I didn't grow up with a Game Boy for most of my childhood. So we kind of had to expand the scope a little bit.
I'm glad that we could get you into some of these other ones because I think our lists are going to be pretty different enough that we're going to cover a wide variety of games here.
Yeah.
I didn't play as much Game Boy Color as you did, and you didn't play as much of the original.
Yeah, I think, I forgot what list we did a while back. It might have been, it wasn't NES games. Maybe it was NES games, but we all had a pretty diverse list because it seemed like that from what we were talking about, it might have been something where, games weren't as accessible when we were kids. And
yeah, it was
a handful.
Basically whatever our parents or our families could get us.
Yeah, and she was like, if it was inexpensive, whatever the case might have been. So I feel like we had a pretty diverse list for the NES. And then I think as we get older, especially as we get discretionary income and everything, our lists are maybe a little bit more similar for current generations. But then these older era games like Game Boy, this list, I would say between the two was pretty diverse.
Yeah.
I'd say we have some pretty interesting choices overall.
This was another...
Some games that weren't a surprise.
This was another one, well, for me, because I had it so early, a lot of my games are based on what my parents got me for gifts and everything, and what they thought was appropriate, or what just in general I wanted and I asked for Christmas or birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did the Mario Land 2 episode, it really got me thinking more about Game Boy and how recently I've been collecting a little bit more of them when we go to shops, and also Game Boy came out on the Switch Online. So that's really been able to open my world up to games that I might not have owned back then.
Yeah, I would say with as crazy as Nintendo is with releasing these really bizarre games just randomly, for all their different console apps, their emulator apps, it actually benefits the Game Boy because the Game Boy has such a wide array of games.
Yeah.
Tons we've never even played or seen before. So it's cool that they've introduced some games that we haven't really had, played much back then, or maybe we haven't played it in decades. But a lot of them ones, like I was telling you about Alleyway, it's that Breakout clone.
Oh yeah,
I was having a ton of fun with that game, and I never played that as a kid. I don't even know if I really saw it back then.
No, it was a launch title.
Oh, it was a launch title?
I think it was a launch title with baseball.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I figured just mostly Tetris was the biggest launch game on there. But the Game Boy, there's a lot of fun to be had with the Game Boy. So we're really excited to talk about this. But before we get to that, Deucy, what have you been playing that isn't Game Boy?
Well, I already talked about Metroid Zero Mission, which was Game Boy.
That was a Game Boy, a sort of Game Boy.
Yeah. So also, I got into because we played it co-op the last time I was here for our recording. What do you call it? Contra. Operation Galuga.
Yeah.
So I ended up finally getting that because I always wanted it from when it was announced and everything. It's just, I don't know. A lot of other things came up, and then I finally saw it on sale on PlayStation, which, funny enough, it wasn't on sale on Xbox. So I was like,
"Oh, that's interesting."
Sold.
Yeah,
I will get it on PlayStation. I really enjoy it. I enjoyed the co-op with you, and then I've enjoyed it solo. But also, it's my typical run and gun style where I've gotten to only level 3 and kind of hit a wall.
What was getting you stuck on there? Because I did finish the story mode on normal here, and I was telling you it's a difficult game, but I feel like it's one of the more more fair Contra games, which is a weird thing to say because
Oh,
it
for
just
sure.
sounds off.
I mean, you have a life bar in this one.
Yeah, you can have life bar, or you can do the one-hit death stuff you want.
Oh, I wouldn't have even gotten to level 3.
It would have been tough with that, yeah. But in general, I thought like the difficulty was pretty fine. I would say the only thing is like some of the levels are a little too long.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed that with level 2, and even a little bit now in level 3. I think what's getting me is that I sort of, because I've died a lot on level 3, I'm rushing through the first part, which means I'm getting hit a lot more. And I always, so far, I've only gotten to the part where you meet up with that one guy in the full suit of armor, and he's got a staff. He's twirling that around. And then you have to go vertical, which was like classic from the original Contra. But I don't know, by the point when I get to there, I've already lost a couple lives and my health is low. And then it's some of the jumping is getting me. Like there's those little handles that you have to grab onto.
They are pretty tough to grab because they're also pretty small, and you know the screen's kind of zoomed out.
Yeah,
for the most part, so it's kind of hard to really get a sense of where you're supposed to be landing on those.
The hit detection for me seems a little off, or I'm just like jumping at weird angles, so I just miss it completely. And even with a double jump, I can't correct and get back to it. Luckily, when you fall, you don't lose an entire life, but you do lose one health bar, which adds up when you miss the handle like 3 times.
Yeah, and you also can lose your weapon if you don't have the right perk. So that awesome weapon you're using for most of the level may be gone if you have one misstep.
And then as soon as that happens, when you get kind of flustered and you do make the jump, now all of a sudden you've got like bullets and boulders coming at you from multiple angles.
Yeah.
So it just sort of all adds up and compounds, and I die on that vertical spot every time.
Yeah, the one thing that sucks about the game is that there's no online co-op, because you were texting me about that. I was like, oh, we could do co-op and it'd be cool to play through.
Yeah.
I looked up, I was like, oh, geez, like it's only local. Like I appreciate having local. Obviously, it was great because we actually played that in person.
Yeah, that was
a couple weeks back where
very
it was.
classic.
Yeah, it was super cool about that. But it sucks that there's no online at all. Like that would have been really cool.
Yeah, what's the point of making a remake in the modern age when you don't have online co-op?
Yeah, it's really surprising. But I really love this game. It's I should get back more into it to unlock some of the other characters and the perks. But it's a really good Contra game because I'd say it's considerably more accessible than other ones. There's a lot of options for lives and health, and you can buy perks that'll give you extra lives or extra health. There's a lot to help you. So it's like you may lose over and over and over, but you're still getting that currency that I think it's like coins or credits or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you can use those in the shop to help you build up your character.
I've already gotten the one where you get longer invincibility when you've died.
I use that a lot.
And then you start with a homing missile.
I love the homing guns. Like I said, I use that for like most of the game.
Yeah.
Because I was just zipping through platforming. I was just holding that button, letting the homing do its work.
I can't wait to unlock some extra characters too, because the one I used when we were co-oping, he was a lot better than the base guys that you get.
Yeah, it's surprising because there's quite a few characters in this. There's a couple originals, and they have some characters from hardcore, but they all play kind of differently. Like some might have a double jump, one has like a hover, one girl has like a grappling hook.
No, that was the guy that I was using in the armor.
No, the other girl has a grappling hook too,
cool.
I think. Yeah, so they all have different sort of abilities and ways to traverse, which kind of changes things up. And like one girl, her spread shot and regular shot, it looks like a crescent thing. It's not so much like a bead or like a pea shooter.
Oh.
And you could charge it up. Of course, it's slower and it does more damage, but it's hard to use.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Like, they have multiple characters and actually play differently, whereas, like, older Contra games, if they have different characters, they usually were the same. Just different skins or something.
I've played a couple other things. One of them was while I was sick and just, like, chilling on the couch for the longest time, I finally got into Star Wars Dark Forces.
Oh, did you get the remaster?
I got the remaster.
Heather got the remaster.
Yeah. And I'd never played it on the original, but I always wanted to because I played the later games like Jedi Outcast, and they would reference the Dark Forces and things like that. I've gotten so far to the 3rd level, which is the sewer level.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I was like, another sewer level, like typical of old games, but also like the graphics for what the sewage looks like, I was kind of turned off by it. I was like, I guess that's good on their part.
Well, it looks like a vomit color. Like
yeah.
It's a weird, like banana peach. I don't know what color you would say it would be. It's
but
really
just
weird.
just like the way it looks, it doesn't splash or anything, but it just has this weird texture to it that is very off-putting.
It's a little different. Yeah. I'm stuck at that level too because that game quickly reminds you that's an old school game because the remaster is remaster, obviously, but it still kept some of the old gameplay choices intact. So it's like I died 3 times and it was basically like a game over. I was like, oh, that's how it works. You have to start the whole level over again, right?
I haven't died yet, but I did get lost in like I think the first level.
I did too, and I finally learned the level because I'm so used to some games now where it's just like it's almost like autopilot where you traverse through.
Yeah.
But like these sewer levels, it's kind of like a labyrinth in some ways. Like they look very similar in a lot of the pathways you can take.
Oh crap!
So I was getting kind of confused about that. And granted, there's a map that does help. I still was finding myself kind of confused on where to go because it's like I have to use certain switches, might open a door that I wasn't paying attention to.
Oh, that's another thing. You hit a switch and then you're like, okay, what did that?
Yeah, what did that do?
What did that even do?
Yeah, the remaster is really excellent though. It's
yeah.
I had only played the game on PS1 back in the day, and I didn't get to play too much because I'd only rented it before I bought it way later. And it's a really cool Star Wars game because it was different because it was a first-person shooter, which I hadn't seen. And it was also more like Doom, which was obviously something we'd never seen before.
Very much.
Star Wars.
The last thing I got into is probably my big game that I'll be spending a lot of time on. You know, since I finished Outer Worlds, I didn't know what I wanted to really focus on story-wise, but I finally got into Ghost of Tsushima.
I love that game so much.
I don't know why I have a problem pronouncing that.
It's that T.
When I read it in my head perfectly fine. Yeah. But no, this game is freaking amazing.
I told you. I've been waiting for you to play it when it came out on PS4. I played right through that game. Randy played through it. It has to be my favorite samurai game ever. It's so freaking good from every point.
Like I'm only into Act 2. I'm just starting Act 2, but I already feel like the most unstoppable badass.
Yeah.
Because I've leveled up so much, and you get perks really easily. Like, only some of the later ones cost 2 points, but before that, everything costs 1 point. So you're just like, I take that and that and that.
And the more you play, the more unlocks, because that's what was throwing me off was like you see your skill tree, and then later in the game, more open up.
Yeah.
Because you get new tools and wherever else. And it's really amazing. Like you can play stealth if you want. There's emphasis on stealth. Or you could just go in blazing through and just like slashing people down. And it's totally possible if you're good enough for the combat.
This has a stealth that I hope the new Assassin's Creed that's going to be set in Japan.
Yeah.
I hope they adapt some of the things where like you can chain together the stealth kills and things like that. Because when I first started, you don't have those perks. But you also feel like this awesome samurai who... They even have that button where you push up and it says standoff, and you just call out the enemies. You're like, "Hey,
it's so freaking
come
awesome.
face me."
Yep.
And you aren't scared. You're just like, "I got this." And then you end up slaughtering the entire Mongol horde that's standing around you. And then once more stealth mechanics come into it, I'm like, "Oh, I can be both," and I don't even have to worry about raising an alarm, except for they do have that one gimmick where if there's hostages, they'll start sending guys specifically at the hostages.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get this now. I get that, like, you are supposed to feel awesome, but there is that...
Yeah, you still have your duty that you're doing.
Yeah.
And you still have to prioritize the people you're saving or your mission, really.
Yeah. So that's actually forced me to do stealth a little more so I don't even put them in danger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the most well-crafted games, of the last, like, 10, 15 years. It's one of the open world games where I feel like the collectibles are just enough to where they're not annoying. Mm-hmm. Like there's a ton to collect, but it's not like an Ubisoft game where it's like there's a billion little HUD markers on your screen.
They're also not so necessary. Mm-hmm. Like I'll run into a lot of things, the health spas and the little fox ones that give you more charms, and I've run into enough where I feel safe and I don't have to go searching for more because I'm low level or something.
And also one big thing that this game does that a lot of games should take note of is like when you're good at the combat and like you're parrying things or it doesn't matter the size of the enemy, like you're not totally defenseless. So like you don't have to go level up like you said. Like if you're adept enough with the combat or stealth, you can get through. It might be a little bit more difficult, but you're not forced to level up your abilities or anything else.
Yeah, no, I think I've only died a handful of times because I just got caught off guard.
Yeah, you might get overwhelmed or something, but it never feels like it's totally unfair.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I've hit a wall. I just am like, oh, I'll be more aware of how many enemies are coming at me.
Yeah, it's a really amazing game. It's you play as Jin Sakai, and it's like the whole game is like this sort of the legend, the ghost of Tsushima, and this game does an amazing job of making Jin, work to be that legend.
Yeah.
Just in how he's spreading fear all throughout Japan, like they're knowing he's coming around to kill them.
I love how the presentation, they ask you how you want it done, where you could have like English, you could have English subtitles with Japanese spoken, and then you can have the black and white.
Yeah, that Kurosawa mode, which is you were telling, because I was saying like I want to play through this game again because I haven't played through the PS5 one, and like you should just do it in the black and white version. Like, yeah, that would be great to do actually.
I didn't choose that one because I haven't experienced it yet, and I'm glad I've gone the regular path because the colors are so vibrant and everything.
This game is a freaking looker. Like, it's just the vibrant world design, like everything just looks amazing. Like you're encouraged to explore. Like there's a lot of interesting things you could look at that'll make you want to go look through there, which is funny because you text me about no waterfalls, no secrets in there, which is a fair criticism. Like there should always be a secret behind a waterfall,
At least one somewhere.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, weirdly, is find the haiku spots.
I do like those. They're a little bit relaxing, right? A little meditative.
And then you get to actually choose your own like haiku out of like 3 options, 9 options technically. And then you get the little headband, and I'm like, I have like 3 now, and I'm like, yeah, these were made by me. Yeah. I will wear them.
And they give you nice little perks.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, one note about the black and white mode is it's not just like a filter they applied over the game. From what I had read back when they added it, they actually went through to kind of tune the colors and the all the highlights and everything. Like it's something where they went through the game to kind of make sure that it was emphasizing the right things with the black and white. So it's not just like a generic filter they threw on there. They really wanted to make it like a cinematic experience.
Oh yeah, I can see that because sometimes colors don't translate well to black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they still keep color splashes in it, like maybe red or something? Like
I don't know, because that'd be kind of cool if like you did like a standoff.
Yeah,
and, like, you see that crimson red come on the black and white screen or something. I don't know. I didn't check, but. Yeah, it's as if I didn't have a billion games to play through already. Ghost of Tsushima is also tempting me on PS5 because it is a PS Plus game. It's easily installable. Yeah, it could be a problem. Yeah. For what I've been playing a couple of games. So I got into Penny's Big Breakaway, which is a game we had seen on Digital Foundry. It's developed by the same people who did Sonic Mania, so there's always sort of a hallmark of quality just with that, because that's easily one of the best Sonic games to come out in a long time.
Practically like modern Sonic team.
Yeah, pretty much modern Sonic team. So they went off and did their own thing with this. You play as Penny, and her gimmick here is she has like a yo-yo, and this game really feels like a Saturn or Dreamcast game, but like on PS5 and Xbox consoles.
Oh yeah, when I saw it, I got heavy N64 vibes.
Yeah, it feels like one of those old school platformers, like in a 3D environment. You're collecting these little, gem things as currency. Like you're going through and doing tasks for people that are really basic in the levels. It's set up like Sonic, where there's like, there's like 12 worlds, I think, 11 or 12, and there's like, I think they call them acts in here, and there's like 1 to 3 levels per act. And it's a pretty beefy game. Like I'm on world 7 or 8, and I still have a ways to go, and there's a lot of unlockable stuff. This just feels like it's just feel good platforming from back in the day. Like they really made it like a modern Dreamcast Saturn game. Like it has that Saturn aesthetic where it's like everything's just kind of like blocking, like Sonic looking
and bright
and vibrant. Yeah, it looks really great. So I've been having a ton of fun with that because it's just something I can turn on for half an hour, just get through like a few levels, and just I can have like a podcast on or something else. And then the other big one I got back into, of course, because it was inevitable, was Street Fighter 6.
Oh.
Because they released M. Bison as part of the Year 2 character pass.
That's right.
So I've been playing as him a lot, and oh my goodness, Deucy, he is insanely fun. I've been having a ton of fun getting back into it.
Are you like platinum level with him and stuff?
I'm platinum 4 already with him.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still like a ways away from like the higher ranks. Like there's, what was the next one? There's Diamond, and then there's... I think I don't know what's after Diamond, but the top rank is Master. I don't have any characters at Master. It gets really hard when you get to like Diamond. I'm Diamond with one character, and it's hard. People don't mess around on Diamond. But Bison was easy to get to Platinum 4 because he's just like a rush down machine. Like he's totally with my playstyle. Like guy, I was like, I hang back and kind of be defensive. And Bison's like the polar opposite. Like I'm just pressuring people, kind of mixing them up, trying to catch them with their pants down, so to speak. And I still lose, obviously, but I've had a couple of 10 streaks already, so I'm feeling pretty good with Bison so far.
Wow.
So Street Fighter, it's easy for me to get into it any time. Like I just pop that in, and I'm ready.
Are they slow releasing the announced characters?
Yeah, they do it like it's kind of standard now with fighting games. Like Mortal Kombat's releasing a Year 2 pass, and what they do is usually like every month and a half to 2 months, usually with the a new battle pass thing. Like they have a battle pass in Street Fighter 2, or it's called like a fighter pass. It's mostly like you unlock old arcade games or cosmetics for your avatar, or like challenge screens. Like whenever you challenge somebody, like you get in matchmaking, you get like your customized screen on there, you know? So usually whenever they rotate the battle pass things out, that's when they introduce a new character. So I suspect that the next one's probably going to be Terry from Fatal Fury, and then Mai, and then Elena. And I don't know if they're going to do anyone in between that, but I thought I was really happy to release Spice first, because he was my main in Street Fighter 5, so I was happy to see him back in here.
I mean, it makes the most sense, really. He's the Street Fighter character.
Yeah, and all the references are so good. Like we were talking about when I saw the trailer, like his horse is there.
Yep.
And like there's even like animation callbacks where like when you do a dry version of this game, which is like where you sort of cancel out of a move and dash, it looks like it's straight out of Capcom vs. SNK 2, like when he has a sprite running in that game from one of the modes they have on there. So the Capcom, like I said, with Street Fighter 6, they've knocked out of the park as far as like getting every little detail about the characters in there, like all their throwbacks and callbacks. It's really amazing.
I've always enjoyed, no matter how advanced the graphics get in Street Fighter, like M. Bison's move where he can jump on their head.
The head stomp, yes.
The head stomp, and then flip around and do that weird little like forward poke with his hand. That's been there since Street Fighter 2.
It has.
And they still have it, no matter the graphics.
Well, it's also great in this version, too, because for a long time, since Street Fighter 4, M. Bison didn't have, like, a typical Psycho Crusher. It was usually, like, a super move or, you know, like, I think in Street Fighter 5, it was part of your V-Trigger. But it's back in here, so it just takes me back to being a kid. Because my brother would be a cheap bastard and use M. Bison to do the Psycho Crusher back and forth.
Yeah.
So whenever I use that here, it's obviously nowhere near as powerful as it was back then. It just reminds me of like that. I've seen that sprite animation of the Psycho Crusher spinning, trying to block that nonsense. So it's just great. I just love, I always love Street Fighter, so it's easy for me to get back into. So I've been playing a lot of that. And that's really it. Like, it's been hopping around with other games, but I feel like those two have been taking my time more than anything else.
For some reason, I don't know what I saw, or if it was like maybe talk about the movie or something like that, but something in the back of my head said I should try Street Fighter 6. And I know Randy's probably listening to this going, go, do it. But
pull the trigger.
But then another voice, it was like I had a shoulder angel and a shoulder devil, and the devil was saying, hey, you should try it. And the angel was like, no, don't waste your money right now. Wait till it goes even lower in price or something.
For you, for me, I would say for you, for a good buy-in price, it's probably like $20.
Yeah,
maybe
and
30.
And that's if they include some extra characters.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Because you're definitely gonna get more mileage out of the single player stuff, which is great because there's a lot of single player stuff in here. The World Tour mode, I told you like a year ago, it's just like Shenmue.
Yeah,
but it also means it has some of the the bad things about Shenmue, where it's just like it just gets kind of redundant later on. Like I still love it, but.
Do I get to drive a forklift?
You do not, unfortunately. Actually, fortunately, I should say.
Aww.
Fortunately, you can't. So, it does get repetitive later, and then it does get cheap because if you're not leveled up, then some of the layer challenges are just too freaking hard, and you have to cheap them out. So that's the hard part for you. It's like, you'll get a lot of mileage out of it, but then you might just get sick of World Tour mode, which is fair.
I will, I'll hit a wall like every other Street Fighter.
Yeah, you're like, it's not worth the effort, and that'd be totally fair too. It's all dependent on the person. But I think for you, like $20 would be like, I'll jump in for this.
Yeah.
Although I feel like did you buy Mortal Kombat 1? I don't remember if you did.
Not yet, surprisingly.
See, I feel like that's more your speed anyway because of the
sure.
story mode, right?
I've loved all the Mortal Kombats ever since 9 on.
Yeah. See, so I feel like you'd probably be more. You'd probably be more receptive to getting that first than Street Fighter 6, which is great too. Either way, you're fine. It is on. I think it was on sale. Like the Ultimate Edition was on sale pretty recently or something.
Oh, probably, yeah.
It might be, but yeah. Anyway, either way, I think Mortal Kombat 1's more your speed, but I would also obviously recommend Street Fighter 6.
Yeah.
And with that, Deucy, I think we'll get to our main event here. We'll talk about some of our favorite Game Boy games.
That's a weird transition from all this talk of fighting games again, since we
really
just
weird.
did it last week.
Well, that's what happens. You get me mouthing enough about fighting games, I won't stop. We did it for 2 hours last time. Today we're doing something a little different, though. We're going to a console that was released in April 1989 in Japan and July 1989 in the US, and that's the original Game Boy by Nintendo. So just to give a little bit of history on the Game Boy, and by proxy Game Boy Color, because we kind of expanded the scope of this episode to include Game Boy Color games. As a note, like I said, I didn't grow up with the Game Boy really at all. Like I'd only gotten it because a friend of the family found the Game Boy in a rental car, and this was like 1993-ish is from when I can kind of guesstimate when I got it.
Yeah.
And that's how I got it. Like she just gave it to me. She's like, "Oh, you want this? It's the Game Boy." I was like, "Yeah," because I had the Game Gear, and I always wanted the Game Boy because I'd see really cool games on it, like Mega Man or DuckTales, and basically everything you had. Because I would go to your house and you had a ton of Game Boy games.
And also in ads, you would always see them advertised. There was a Nintendo version and then a Game Boy version.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So I love the Game Gear, but the Game Boy, my parents weren't. My dad didn't want to get it because he's like, no, it's black and white. Like we got the Game Gear, it's fine. Which it's fair. It's his money. Like, who wants to pay another $120 for a console and then more games for that too for his kid? It's totally fair,
I don't remember specifically when I got this, but I'm pretty sure I got a Game Boy for Christmas, and I do remember I had on my Christmas list I had Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear.
Game Gear. You had a whole list.
All on one.
Yeah.
And my parents were definitely like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think I got the Game Boy and the Super Nintendo on the same year. I think I got the Game Boy first. I remember having Nintendo and Game Boy a lot. And then at some point, my dad got the Game Gear. I think my mom got it for him for Christmas. So technically, I had both.
Yeah,
technically, but
even though you had more games, there were more for him, like baseball and all the. I remember all the poker type games, card games.
Yeah, he had Caesar's Palace and Poker Face Paul, anything. And then Game Boy was definitely mine.
Yeah, so it's a pretty influential system because this, like I said, it was released in 1989. It was designed by Nintendo R&D1, which is a developer we mentioned a lot on this podcast, just because of Metroid and a lot of other Nintendo projects that are going on, including Super Mario Land 2. Headed by Gunpei Yokoi and Satoru Okada, who Okada was an assistant producer to a ton of Nintendo games, including Metroid. So these two guys have a lot of history with Nintendo because Okada started Nintendo in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah, so what was that? 20 years before the Game Boy was ever released, he'd begun working on the Game & Watch series of handhelds, which were really successful, which were really just sort of the ancestor to the Game Boy. Like they were just these portable consoles with like these LCD screens.
They were the ancestors to Tiger Electronics.
Like Tiger, yeah. So since they, he had experience with that, and then Nintendo wanted to get into the portable gaming market, and it's really weird to me because I know the Game Boy was early, and I always kind of like lose track of when these other competitive consoles were out. Like there was the Atari Lynx, there was the Turbo Express by NEC, which is basically a portable TurboGrafx 16, and of course there's the Sega Game Gear, which is probably the most notable competitor for the Game Boy. And those all released pretty closely to each other. So
was the Turbo Express what we just saw at the game shop?
That's exactly, that's why I pointed it out. Because yeah, there's a Turbo Express. Yeah. And that one looks like a portable TV kind of thing.
Yeah.
Almost. It's really weird. But the commonality with those is they're all in full color. And they're all just battery killers.
Did the Turbo Express play TurboGrafx games, or were they modified like Game Gear?
They were modified,
okay.
Yeah. So Game Gear is sort of like the Sega Master System portable,
yeah,
right? And then the other ones are sort of like the portable versions of their bigger brothers. The Lynx doesn't really have like a proxy necessarily. I guess it wouldn't be. No, Jaguar was way too late.
Yeah.
The Lynx was just its own portable thing, which again looked great. But the problem is like it ate up batteries and it was pretty hulky. Same with the Game Gear. The Game Gear was out April 1991. The Atari Lynx was September 89. So it was just around the time of the Game Boy. But Gunpei Yokoi and Nintendo R&D1, they saw what those consoles were kind of doing. And they realized that like it just wasn't feasible. They needed something that was much more scaled down. So they came up with the monochrome screen, 4 AA batteries that lasted like 15 hours or something crazy, 20 hours. Whereas, the Game Gear... it was about 4 or 5 hours on 6 AA's. Like I remember going to Costco with my dad, and he would just buy a pack of AA's just so I could have that for the freaking Game Gear before I got their chargeable pack.
We got those too from Costco, but we didn't need them as much because for both the Game Boy and Game Gear, we had the separate battery pack that you could charge.
I got that way later, and I'm sure my dad was very relieved when I asked for that for Christmas one year. He's like, "Oh yeah, great! You won't need batteries for this thing ever again."
Yeah.
So those had different varying levels of success. Game Gear sold 11 million units, which even then I was kind of surprised it sold that much. But the Game Boy would go on to sell 118 million units worldwide. So it's one of the most successful consoles ever. It's one of the most top-selling consoles ever. It's just, the influence can't be understated for what the Game Boy did for gaming, especially portable gaming. And the total library for the Game Boy is around 1,042.
Jesus.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
I'm not getting that complete set.
No way, never. Some people have complete sets, and it's mind-boggling. And we're also going to talk about the Game Boy Color. But before the Game Boy Color came out, Nintendo released the Game Boy Pocket, which was like a slimmer version of the Game Boy. I wanted these as a kid, but again, I never got it. Did you have one? Did we just know people had it? I think we only had friends who might have got
There
one.
was, my friend up the street had one.
That might be what I'm thinking of. Then.
Yeah, and I liked the screen. Like, I definitely didn't even bother asking for it because my parents would be like, "You already have a Game Boy."
It was really the same. It was really like if you didn't have a Game Boy, you would get it.
But it was the screen was a lot clearer.
It wasn't
black and white.
It wasn't so green like the regular Game Boy screen was. It was actually a little more of like an LCD, like black and white kind of color scheme for the most part.
It reduced a lot of the motion blur.
Yeah, that too, and also it only needed 2 batteries. And it lasted like 10 or 11 hours compared to, 4 batteries for whatever the hell it was, 15, 16.
It lived up to its name. Like, I saw kids would bring it to school in their pockets.
And also, in a very 90s way, they had a lot of great colors for that. Like, there was a red one. I think there was like a blue one. Like, they whole different kind of colors. There was an atomic purple, which would be a common theme later on in the 90s.
But I always wanted just the silver standard one.
Yeah, that one looked really freaking cool.
Yeah, because that was metallic at the time.
Yeah, and that was released in 96. So it took 7 years for them to come out with sort of a newer version of the Game Boy. And then in 1998, November 1998 to be specific, the Game Boy Color was finally released. So it's funny to think that the Game Gear in 91 had color, and it took Nintendo to 1998 to get any kind of color on their screens.
And they still didn't have a backlight.
And they still don't have a backlight. It was still just, you need a worm light thing or whatever solution you had. You couldn't play this in the dark.
Play by street light.
Yeah. and I think it just goes to show again with Nintendo how they develop products. They'll wait till the technology is there where it's like, it's cheaper or maybe more scalable for the hardware. It's just, they don't want to release like a $250 handheld, at least back then.
Because the Game Boy Color still only used 2 AA's.
Exactly. It was only 2 AA's. It was backwards compatible with the Game Boy games, which was pretty foreign concept for consoles back then.
That was a godsend.
Yeah, like most consoles didn't have backward compatibility. Like you could get adapters like on the Genesis to play Master System games.
Oh yeah,
but it wasn't a common thing, And the Game Boy Color ended up having around 900 and something games,
915.
Yeah, so the whole library between the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and I'm sure there's probably some overlap in some releases, just around 2,000 games. It's pretty insane.
I don't even remember seeing 900 Game Boy Color
I don't
games.
either. I was thinking about like how quickly games release and how much shovelware there was, but 900 games just, like that thing only lasted what? Game Boy Advance was 2001, so within 3 years there's like 300 games a year roughly, right?
And I owned 4 of them.
Yeah, at
best.
Game
Boy Color.
I owned a few Game Boy Color games, but again at this point we weren't working, so we didn't have the disposable income to buy or save Game Boy Color games. And also the Game Boy Color logo was also notable to me. It just reminds me of being a teenager again. The color spelled out the color of the letters were all the different colors that they offered. So that was one great thing about the 90s was everything was a different color, right? So you see the different colors. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the C was berry. They have grape, kiwi, dandelion, and teal. So I got the Kiwi console, and that is still one of my favorite colored consoles ever. Like, it just looks so good. It's just like a bright, vibrant kiwi green. It's really nice.
I got the atomic purple.
That's what I thought. Did someone have teal? Who had teal? Oh, my friend might have had teal, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had atomic purple, and then a lot of people I've talked to, even recently, if they ever mentioned Game Boy Color, they were like, "You got the see-through purple, right?"
Yeah.
It's like, yep, everybody did.
Everyone did. I was just, I was happy because one of the games I was talking about was Pokemon Blue, but I got that in the Costco pack with the Kiwi Green, so it was perfect. I had the Pokemon Blue, Kiwi Green console.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for this episode, since we gave you some background on Game Boy and Game Boy Color, we're going to cover some of our honorable mentions. And we have sort of like a top 10 list, but really just kind of go, jet shot right through them because there's only so many games that we can dive into. There's a couple notable ones. And then, there's only so much. We have a lot of games to cover here because our list is reasonably diverse, I would say.
Yeah, I've got a majority of the original Game Boy, and you've got definitely a majority of the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, we have a very weird mix.
Yeah.
So, Deucy, go ahead. We'll just give you the whole time. Just go through all your honorable mentions there because you only have like 6 or 7, which is about what I have on there.
I was telling you when I made this list, I was surprised. Like, at first I didn't know if I was going to have enough for a 10. And then I got my top 10, and all of a sudden I had like 6 or 7 honorable mentions.
That's exactly how I was because we'll give a peek behind the scenes. When we were talking about this, I was like, I don't know if I have like 5 Game Boy games. I was really struggling at the time immediately to think of things off the top of my head. And you're talking about including like Game Gear games, but I did the same where it's like the more I was like thinking about it and kind of looking games up and what I owned, and I was like, dang, there's a lot more games that I remember loving than I thought. I just tend to forget about them for some reason.
So for me, my honorable mentions, a couple of them might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'd like to shout out Super Mario Land, the first one, because I did play that a ton. It was when I first got a Game Boy, Tetris came with it, and then I got Super Mario Land separate. My parents wanted to give me a little bit of an option, so on that same Christmas, I got the two things together, and it was Mario Portable. That was great.
I think that's the thing is we were talking about that Mario Land 2 episode where it's really easy to be critical of how bad it might be nowadays, but in 1990-ish, 1991, there was no portable Mario experience except for that. Yeah.
Another honorable mention might be shocking is Metroid 2.
I was surprised this was only an honorable one for you.
Yeah, because
I feel like this would be like your mom's top 3 though.
Yes. It'd be like all the Donkey Kong lands and then Metroid.
Yeah.
But for me, it was only an honorable mention because I really enjoyed it, but I didn't play it nearly as much as her.
Yeah.
And by the time I was really playing it, I also owned Super Metroid, so I played that a ton more. And this one, I could only play if I had the Nintendo Power sitting next to me because you get lost easily.
Very easily, yeah.
Another one, and I still remember that this is my third ever game on Game Boy.
I don't even think I heard of this one.
Yeah, Mickey's Dangerous Chase. Mm-hmm. It's only about like 4 or 5 levels long, and the story is Pete steals Mickey's birthday present for Minnie. So, first off, it's not the typical damsel in distress. It's just Pete being a dick. But then you have to go through these levels, and it gets pretty hard. I think I only got to about like maybe the 3rd level on a regular basis. But you just play as Mickey, you jump around. I don't remember, you don't shoot anything like you could in Mickey Mousecapade. I think you could jump on things. That was pretty much it. That was the basics of it.
It seems like a pretty basic kids platforming game. That's all it needed to be.
Like I said, it was my 3rd ever game, so I was very young, and my parents were like, "Hey, it's Mickey." Another honorable mention is Pokemon Pinball, and at the time, I wasn't a huge Pokemon fan, but pinball was fun.
I still love pinball,
and I remember it had the little extra battery slot so you could have a rumble feature. And then all of a sudden my dad got really into it because he is a huge pinball fan. It doesn't matter what the theme is, he'll just play the heck out of pinball. So here he was like practically finishing off his Pokédex, and he has no idea what a Pokemon is.
Yeah, I do remember you telling me that way back then. Yeah.
He was just destroying the high scores. Like, when I finally got the game back, I was like, I can't even touch the 5th most score or whatever was on the list. And so when I moved out, I just let him keep that game, and he plays that one.
That's so funny.
Couple more honorable mentions. Turtles. Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, which was their first one. I owned this one. I actually got it a little confused with Turtles 2.
I always get those confused on Game Boy.
Yeah, but the first one is very basic. You're a huge turtle sprite, and you're just going from left to right, punching anything that gets in your way. But again, it was Turtles portable, so I played the hell out of it.
And it looked gorgeous for us back then. That's all I cared about back then.
And they had like the Turtles theme playing just a ton over and over on a loop. And then last honorable mention goes to Super Mario Brothers Deluxe on Game Boy Color, because it was the first time that an actual Mario game from Nintendo was made portable.
It was. And I know people are critical of this now because they say it's cropped and whatever, but it's like, again, I didn't care back then when I was like 16, where it was. It's a really cool game. I think it has some extra modes or mini games, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, if I recall correctly. It's a really fantastic game. I really loved it. I got that one recently, too. I posted it because I was actually found at the game store, so I was really happy to find that one.
That's another one that I let my dad keep when I moved out because like he was a huge original Mario fan.
Yeah.
So he played the heck out of that one. I think he still has my Mario Land 1 also.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, you got the Switch version A if you need it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'll go through mine here. So the first two I'll kind of shout out, and this is really just kind of tangentially related to one of the games I played a lot. So I called out Killer Instinct and Street Fighter 2 for the Game Boy because portable fighting games were pretty hard to find back then, whether it was a Game Gear or Game Boy. Most of them were pretty crap, rightfully so. The Mortal Kombat 2 ports were probably my favorite at the time because they're actually playable. But it's kind of tangentially related because I used to play a game called Raging Fighter on the Game Boy, because when I got my Game Boy, the only thing I had was baseball. And the first game I rented was Mega Man at the Warehouse, because that's the only game I really could find there. And then, Game Boy games, the cheapest one you could find was a game called Raging Fighter. It's this really awful fighting game, but my brother and I played the hell out of that because my parents owned a deli back in the day, and like that's all we could play back then was either the Atari that we had hooked up in the little break room my parents had,
Nice,
or Game Gear or Game Boy, and we were just playing Raging Fighter because that was like the new thing we only had. But beyond that, Raging Fighter, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter 2 are just fighting games that look great. They don't play well, but they're still kind of cool experiences because they did try to condense these big Super Nintendo games into a Game Boy.
I forgot Street Fighter 2 was even ported there.
Yeah, I remember it was a big deal because I remember seeing it at Toys R Us and there was ads for it and everything. And it's just not great, but again,
I remember.
What more can you expect?
I remember seeing Mortal Kombat 2 and Killer Instinct because they were very grainy looking ports of the originals. You're like, well, I can sort of make out that it looks like the Super Nintendo version.
Especially Killer Instinct. That one's really kind of nasty to look at times. Yeah. The next thing I'm calling out, it's Shantae for Game Boy Color. So I got this at Blockbuster for like $7, and I can't believe that it's one of the rarest Game Boy Color games ever. It's like, I have the cart still. It's like $700 or something ridiculous.
Damn.
It's the first in a series of games that would later get popular on like the Game Boy. I actually know it was canceled on Game Boy Advance, but they got popular with like the Wii U, 3DS. They're really fantastic platforming games, but this is like the OG Shantae. It was, I think it was only published by Capcom. I don't know if it was developed by them, but it was a really fun platformer that I think was underrated. It released really late in the Game Boy Color's life cycle. I think it might have been 2001. So Game Boy Advance was the news then, and Game Boy Color was just nothing. They probably printed like very few copies of this game. Super Mario Deluxe, you mentioned that one. I call it my love for that one because it's just a really great game. It's portable Mario, which was the coolest thing we could ask for back then on the Game Boy Color. Zelda Oracle of Ages and Seasons. These, I would have put them higher on my list if I'd beaten them, but I only played them when I got them used way back when I was like a teenager. They're really excellent games, especially how they sort of interconnect with each other and like the different mechanics they all have. One based on season and one based on time traveling. And I think you have to beat both to get the sort of true ending, right? Which is really cool. And these are also published by Capcom, which is really surprising. Zelda and Capcom is a combo I wouldn't have expected back then.
I wanted to play them back then. I only played Link's Awakening because a friend had it. I didn't put it anywhere on my list, spoiler alert, because I never beat that one. And
Me neither.
Never really got far in it.
Yeah.
But I always did want to try Oracle Ages and Seasons because of that combo thing that they did.
It's really cool.
And I have gotten to play it recently. Luckily, they're on the Switch Online thing. And I think on that, they even have a way for you to beat both of them.
I believe so. I don't know how it works, but I love that they went to the extra effort to make that happen because it's a pretty big piece of the game. That's a pretty big gimmick of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also had Pokemon Pinball on there because I was a Pokemaniac at the time, and I loved Pokemon Pinball. Like I was nowhere near as good as your dad was.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun pinball game. It's sort of it's different because it's on the small Game Boy Color screen, but it would kind of scroll up depending on where you were, and your Pokeball was the pinball.
Yeah.
And it had a really cool system to capture Pokemon and find them. It's a great pinball game. Like I really love this. I should revisit this one just for fun. And the last one of my mentions is Zelda Link's Awakening DX. So not the Game Boy version, the Game Boy Color version, which ironically I found at the store today, complete, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
But this is just a colorized version of Link's Awakening because at the time, Nintendo released a few games that were called DX. I can't remember too many of them. There was I think they did R-Type DX. There's a few sort of color-enhanced games that they had done for the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, they were
old Game Boy ones.
Yeah, I was going to say they were the original Game Boy, and then they remade them.
Yeah.
Or remixed them.
Yeah.
They even added some stuff, especially to Link's Awakening.
They did. Link's Awakening, I think, has an extra dungeon or something like that.
The Color Dungeon, which is, in the remake for Switch, that it's based on this DX version.
It is, yes. So I've now beaten both versions, right? But I actually beat the remake first.
Yeah.
So the reason this isn't in my top sort of 10 or top 5 or anything is just because I played it when I was younger, but I never finished it either. And that's a great list on its own right there. Between the two of us, honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of great stuff coming up. So Deucy, go ahead and start with, with your number 10 choice.
My number 10, again, might be a bit of a surprise, but it's got to come on here, I think. It's Tetris.
Of course. I figured this had to be on one of our lists for sure.
Because I love Tetris, and back then, like I said, it came with the system. I mean, it goes hand in hand with Game Boy. You can't have one without the other. And for me, I played it a lot back then, but I wasn't as good at Tetris as I am now. So I don't even remember how high my score could have gotten. But I did find it a little bit easier than the Nintendo version. And also, the game just seemed more apt for portability.
It's a system seller. I mean, that is like the epitome of system seller. Like that is the reason why I think, at least in the beginning, why Game Boy sold so much.
Yeah.
Because Tetris caught fire, and it's a perfect portable game. You could play it 5 minutes or an hour, if you get, depending on how much you get into it. All right.
That's another one that my dad held on to, and he has played it so much that it's mostly worn out.
Oh my god! You have to get him a new one.
Yeah, because he plays it in the Game Boy Advance SP, so it kind of hangs out the bottom a little.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you just sort of like rub on it and rub it off.
He probably has like on his lap or something.
Yeah.
And it's rubbing off on the blanket or whatever else. Yeah, that's pretty funny. My one game I had on my number 10 here was Castlevania Legends. This was a later Castlevania game released on the Game Boy. My brother and I got it at EB Games, and a lot of people don't like this game, and they're probably right about it. Like, it's a really basic Castlevania game. It's pretty slow.
Well, they all were on Game Boy.
They were, but this was like, this had no excuse to be so slow. I think it was released in 98, somewhere around there. It was a later game.
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people expected more from a late release. I loved it. Unfortunately, my brother and I, we were heavily invested in SwitchHouse.com in the early 2000s, where it's this really primitive service where you would get a hold of somebody and offer a trade. Like you'd say, like, okay, I'll trade you Shenmue for Marvel vs. Capcom. So we thought it was a great idea because we had PS2. It's like, yeah, this guy's offering us Kessen for PS. It's a PS2 game for Castlevania Legends Complete. All right.
Oof.
So we got Kessen in. Found out we hated it because it's a real-time strategy game. Traded that away for Donald Duck Going Quackers, which fun platforming game.
Yeah.
Probably better than Castlevania Legends. The difference though is like Castlevania Legends costs $700 now complete. So that's always a bitter pill for my brother and I to swallow. We always joke about that. It's like, yeah, like we took Kessen for a $700 Castlevania game that we actually enjoyed. So I had to put that on my top 10 just because I do have fondness for it. And I'm forever salty that we let that game go because it was a game we genuinely loved, and we just got greedy with the sight of a PS2 game.
Small consolation is it was a surprise release on Switch Online.
That's why I was really shocked. I texted you right. I was like, "What? Now no one has to pay $500 for the cartridge."
And when you texted me that, I was like, my first thought was, "Wait, the really expensive one?"
Yeah.
So my number 9, another probably surprisingly low one, is Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah, I'm surprised you put that lower.
I think because back then I wasn't a Pokemaniac, at least that I remember, but I did enjoy like the cards.
I think you were definitely into it less than I was, because me and my friend Brandon and I were really into it.
Yeah.
And then like I know we got you into it, but you were definitely like not at the hype level we were. This was like all we were talking about for a while.
I remember I borrowed your version of Blue for a little while. And like I said, I enjoyed the cards, but I didn't want to go out and buy them because that was going to be a ton of money. But eventually Pokemon Yellow came out. It released later after Red and Blue was a huge thing. And I was like, you know what? I'll get this because it's different. Like
and you start with Pikachu.
Everybody I knew had Red and Yellow or Red and Blue. And I was like, no, I'm going to be special. This is the special edition. And like you said, you start with Pikachu. He follows you around. It was basically like the cartoon in Game Boy form.
Yeah. I'd say it's a classic because I have that at number 3 on my list, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I have Pokemon Blue for very good reason on mine. My number 9, Deucy, is Resident Evil Gaiden for the Game Boy Color. This was...
Hidden gem.
Yeah, hidden gem, I would say. It's rough because when you think Resident Evil and Game Boy Color, you instantly have to assume it's not going to be great. And admittedly, like this game does have a lot of problems. Like, the graphics are kind of not great. Like, it's kind of hard to see things. It does have a cool combat mechanic where when the zombies, you see them on their playing field in the level, and then when you encounter them or bump into them, you're in like this first-person minigame mode where you have to hit A to take a shot, and it has to match up with the little marker. And each of the weapons have a faster or slower speed marker depending on what weapon it is. And it makes it more difficult, but it's also like, if you get really good, then you won't miss. Like, you can actually hit the zombies or the bosses.
Does it take into account, like, how wounded you are? Doesn't that affect the little meter?
I can't remember if that does. It might, or it might make the little, the sweet spot smaller or something.
Yeah.
That might, yeah. So it's a pretty, simple game overall. It's not meant to be canon. It's a weird because we were waiting for the port of Resident Evil 1 for so long on Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and it never happened, and we got this. And it's a fun game for what it is, Most original fans probably think poorly of it. It's fine, but for me, it was a really enjoyable Game Boy Color game.
I like to think of it as canon too.
Yeah, it kind of is. Like I think you do play as Barry on a ship.
Barry and Leon, I believe.
Yeah, I think they're both in here.
Yeah.
And it's a fun game. I could admittedly say it's objectively not good, but it's really good. It's unfortunately pretty expensive if you want to find it now.
Oh wow.
I think the complete copy is like $300 or $400, and maybe the cart's like $100 or something like that. It's awful.
Jeez.
So just go emulate it if you want to go check it out. Yeah. Hit us with your number 8, Deucy.
Our number 8s sort of line up with each other a little.
They do
tangentially here.
Yeah.
But my number 8 is an entire trilogy, Donkey Kong Land.
I figure these are going to be on there because I borrowed each of them from you and beat them. Yeah.
And I couldn't really separate them out because they're all basically the same and basically copies of the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country. Except for Donkey Kong Land 1 only had 4 worlds. One of them was a city, which is nowhere near Donkey Kong Country. But I think 2 and 3 sort of went back to following more of what Country did. Mm-hmm. But all of them, so fun to play, even if they're a little hard to see. Now it'd be easier. They're not on Switch Online yet, are they?
They're not, no.
It would be great if they released those next, because they're really fun for what they are. Like, my mom played all of them. I think, like, 100%ed all of them. Mm-hmm. You have vivid memories of her like getting mad
all
at
the
them.
time. We'd be sitting in the playroom playing whatever, and I would just hear her scream at something because she missed a jump or got hit by something.
But they're also, I mean, they're all together. I couldn't separate them out, and they're also this kind of low because I didn't play them as much as the Country series.
Yeah, they were a great portable slim down experience, but obviously we played Country just because it was there. Like, you know, if you're in a car on a road trip, great experience. But if we're at home, we're likely just playing Donkey Kong Country or something, you know.
Fun fact, when you start up Banjo-Kazooie, one of the save files is him playing a Game Boy, and it has the sound effects from those games.
That's right. I do remember the Game Boy in there, yeah. Also, these came in a great banana yellow cart.
Yes.
I think all 3 of them did, right? Yeah,
yep.
So that's another, I would consider another positive for them, yeah. And like you said, this kind of ties into mine, which is Donkey Kong 94. Admittedly, I didn't play this until I was much older because I really didn't know... I misassumed that this is going to be basically a copy of the arcade game.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's really only the first 4 levels that are taken from the arcade game, and this is really a sequel. And it's really freaking good. Another cool thing is you can actually put this in your Super Game Boy, and the enhancements, it has color enhancement too, but the border is the arcade cabinets.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really freaking cool.
It's a sequel to the original arcade, and then it's a prequel to all the Mario versus Donkey Kong games.
It is. And, this one has, I think, 118 levels, which is insane. There's a lot. And it does have battery backup, fortunately, which, I mean, you have to, unless it's passwords or something, right?
It became more of a platform puzzler.
Yeah, and that's what really surprised me because, I really dismissed it when I was younger because, like I said, as soon as like the arcade game, and then... a few years ago, I kept hearing how good it was. And I just finally booted up on an emulator. I was like, holy crap, this is really good. The graphics are really good. It controls really well. The puzzles are pretty well varied. It's an excellent freaking Game Boy game. I just wish I hadn't dismissed it back then.
It's weird, too, because I had this like Mandela effect of thinking that you had it when we were younger.
Yeah.
And that I played it at your house, but I didn't.
I
guess another friend had it.
I can't remember who might have had it either because I don't recall playing it. I don't know if anyone owned it.
I do remember borrowing it from somebody and playing a little bit of it. And then for the longest time, I forgot about it. And when you brought it up again recently, I was like, oh man, I really like that game. I wish I could find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Come to find out, I had gotten it on the virtual console on my 3DS.
Oh, that's funny.
And I forgot about it. So when I started up my 3DS again recently for like Castlevania and stuff, there it is on my menu. I was like, oh, sweet.
Like, I have this. I can just play it now. Yeah. I would like to get an actual copy or, it seems like such a shoo-in for the Game Boy app on Switch. So I hope they do something like that because it's a really freaking good game. Like, we're closing in on the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Country. Like, for God's sake, Nintendo.
Yeah.
I know you announced Donkey Kong Country HD next year, but just release some of the old games on the Game Boy apps. Come on. We just need it to happen. All right, Juicy, go with your number 7.
Yep. My number 7, I think we've talked about it before, but we haven't done like a list of it or anything, was Mega Man 2.
This I expected, especially because there's a lot of recency since we both just recently played this one.
Yeah, we when they came out on Switch Online, I started powering through all of them. But Mega Man 2 was the one I owned first. I eventually got Mega Man 3. And it was like, it was such a great portable version of a Nintendo game. It didn't matter what the colors looked like or anything, or that Mega Man is huge compared to his Nintendo version. It was also just easy enough that I could beat it in like a single sitting or in like a car ride or something, and I didn't have too much trouble with it like I did the Nintendo games. So it was just a great Mega Man to have.
Did this have a pass-through system? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because I was going to say maybe they made it kind of short and, you know, you could do it in a single run through a single session because it didn't have pass-throughs. But I couldn't remember because when I beat it, I just ran right through it because I was just like watching a show or something. You know? But yeah, it's a really fun port, I would say. When
I played it again recently, like all the sound effects and music just like unlocked a flood of memories.
That's what I love about revisiting some of these games. When that happens, like you haven't played in so long, and all of a sudden you just remember certain things or certain times. It's like a time capsule almost, like a mental time capsule. It's great. My number 7 is Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color. This was a genuine surprise for me back then. My brother bought it. It's an RPG, which I never would have expected from any tennis game back then, and it works. This is also on the Game Boy app on Switch. The only thing I kind of got a rude awakening about is how slow the game is because a lot of the games are so long. But the fact that it's an RPG and also you could take your created character with their stats and everything to Mario Tennis on Nintendo 64 with a transfer pack. And it's just a really fun tennis game. Like, it has a story that's kind of, you know, it's whatever. It's ho-hum. He's just trying to win the tournament, whatever.
Yeah, he's going to like a tennis school or something.
Yeah, and what was that game we played? Golf Story.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It would be heavily influenced by this. Granted, it's golf, but it's an RPG with that same sort of story sentiment.
Even Mario Golf for Switch started to do this.
It did.
With the RPG elements.
Yeah, and this was by, I think it was by... Was it Camelot or HAL?
Camelot, I think.
Camelot, yeah. So I think they'd done like Harvest Moon, if I recall. I can't recall, but it's a really good game. I think it's horribly underrated because it's a tennis game and it has Mario on it, but it has like these generic looking tennis created characters on there, right? But it's a really fun game. I don't know. I don't think we ever played it co-op or anything with System Link. You might have borrowed it, but just the fact that it's an RPG just added a lot of legs to the game on its own.
I did borrow it, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't appreciate it as much back then because I wanted to play as Mario or Luigi like you could on N64.
Exactly, yeah.
And it just took so long to build yourself up to be good enough. And I recently played it on the Switch Online thing, and like you said, it's slow. There's a lot of text to read.
And it's slow text too.
Yeah, and by the time I got to my first tutorial with somebody, I whiffed on like all 4 tries and I just shut the game off. I was like, never mind, I'll go play Top
It's
Spin.
hard to get into. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is like, I revisited it too, and it's like, the memories are still there, but it can be such a slog to get started now where it's just like, I'm over it now. Like, I'll just go play some other modern game or whatever. Cause why, you know? But for the time, it was one of my top Game Boy Color games. Like, I played a lot of that back then. Your number 6, Deucy. This is a fantastic choice right here.
Oh yes, I think we're gonna go in a little more in depth into this one because it might not be well known to a lot of people, but it is James Bond 007.
This was a surprise for me because you bought this. You were at peak Bond fandom, I think, because of GoldenEye, and you told me about it. I played it. I was like, holy crap, this game is really awesome.
So this came out in, I want to say, February of 1998, which is very shortly after GoldenEye.
That's a surprise, actually. That felt like a later game.
And they didn't try to port GoldenEye in some form to a handheld system. This is a totally unique game with its own story, a James Bond story and everything, and it plays a lot kind of top down like Zelda.
Yeah, but it's like an adventure game more than anything else with puzzles, and you kind of use like logic and and puzzle solving with it. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, you have an inventory system that really focuses more on spy gadgets or items that you pick up throughout the levels, and you do get a gun, but it's like a pistol. Mm-hmm. And also you might need a silencer because you're going to alert guards and everything. You also do have your fists, so you can go around stealthily punching people. But they set it up like Zelda, where you put an item or a weapon to A and B, and then you have to keep going into your inventory to swap those out.
Yeah.
The unique thing about this was it was developed by a company named Sapphire, published by Nintendo.
I can't say I've ever heard of Sapphire either.
Yeah, but if you look at what they've made, you've probably heard about a ton of their games.
I've played all these, except for StarCraft Brood War, yeah.
Yeah, they made Rampage, Biofreaks, and Rainbow Six for the N64.
Which is a really solid port
Yeah.
of a PC game. Really good.
Yeah, I was surprised. I have that now. We should get back into that
Yeah.
sometime. They also did the Rogue Spear, which is Rainbow Six 2. They did the Rogue Spear port for PS1, which I didn't even realize was a thing.
I didn't play it because I think I played it on Dreamcast back then. I rented.
I owned the PC version.
I remember.
I really liked that
That game
one.
was so freaking good.
Yeah, they also did StarCraft Brood War, which I'm assuming is like some sort of add-on
It's
pack.
an expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an expansion back then.
I didn't play too much StarCraft back in the day. I always kind of wanted to, but then you see the people that are good at it, and you're like, ooh.
I think that's what it is I'm terrible at RTS games, and the skill ceiling is just, I can't invest the time. Yeah.
The weird thing about this game, though, is like I always remember loving it. And luckily, I didn't pay much attention to reviews at the time.
I'm shocked at these scores here because, I love this game. I know there's problems with it. And you could probably, nitpick about anything, but I'm shocked at these scores.
So what I was reading was that like it was kind of like a 50-50 where the James Bond theme is included in this game, and for some reason that is a line in the sand for a lot of these reviewers.
Yeah.
Some people loved it, some people hated it, and it's just the score. Like, hey, how about like focus on the gameplay too? A lot of reviewers said that it was too easy or it didn't even feel like Bond.
Wow.
And I was like, what are you talking about? They have all the Bond characters. They have Oddjob and Jaws.
I remember
in this.
Oddjob and Jaws, and also they emphasize gadgets. And like I said, there's a lot of puzzles revolving around that. Like you have to do a lot of backtracking, and there's certain things where you need certain items to progress or to get past a certain point. Like
you have to save 008. It was probably like the first mention of 008 in anything. At one point, it has this unique level where the bad guys get the drop on you, and then they just leave you out in the middle of the Sahara Desert.
I remember that part vividly because I got stuck there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to like know which way to go. I think I needed like a Nintendo Power for that.
I do remember borrowing your Nintendo Power because usually what happens, like when I would borrow a game from you, if you had some sort of a Nintendo Power component, I would borrow it with it. It was like a package deal for these things. Yeah.
Because back then the games required it almost.
Yes.
So the reviews back then, like EGM, which when I saw this, they rated it, and this is a weirdly specific number, 2.875.
Yeah, that is very bizarre and insanely low.
Out of 10, not even out of 5.
Awful.
But it did trigger a memory where back then, I remember, like I started out with Nintendo Power, and then I eventually got a subscription to EGM, and I hated almost every review that EGM did. Because like for the games I liked, they would even score kind of low, and all of their reviewers sounded like they were talking out of their ass.
So I actually loved EGM reviewers for the most part. There's always going to be times where I disagree with them, but for the most part for me, they felt like they were the most grounded in some senses. But then there was some of the reviewers they had on their staff where they almost felt like they're on a pedestal and just like talking down to games and like being overly critical. I'm like, it's not that bad.
And they
and
also,
this is a great example of that.
They also, I can't remember if it was EGM who did this, but they would like point out what their specialties were, and then you would see them on games that are not their specialties.
Yeah, that's what always killed me. It's like I understand getting a perspective from someone who's outside the genre, but at the same time, if someone's really good at fighting games and you say, hey, review this RTS game for the next 30, 40 hours,
yeah,
it's going to be a rough time.
Yeah.
Just like the reverse. If you get an RTS heavy person and go play a fighting game like Mortal Kombat, you're going to have a rough time too for 30 hours.
Yeah, they're going to sit there going, well, I didn't get anywhere. I kept losing.
Yeah, it just seems like I wouldn't play one or the other,
I do enjoy, though, that modern reviews have taken over, and a ton of them across the board have said that this is like an underrated gem for a Game Boy game and for a Bond game.
I agree.
And somebody in Retro Gamer said it should not be overlooked or missed.
Yeah, this one I would definitely say if you have means to get an emulator, go check it out. I'm sure it's not even that expensive because people probably hated it.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious what a complete copy would be because I would love to have that. I remember seeing that at your house because the cover had like, I think it was like almost like a... It had Bond, but it had like a bowls like red and...
It's a silhouette of Bond in the gun barrel logo.
Yes.
And then the blood's coming down.
That's right. Yeah. Awesome cover. Yeah. I really love this game. I'm glad you put that. I'm actually surprised it was number 6 though, but You got a pretty tight number 5.
Well, like
or top 5, I should say.
I didn't play it as much as my top 5, so
Yeah, that
it
makes
started to
sense.
get bumped down a little because I loved it, but it wasn't replayable as
Well,
much.
that's how I put my list too. Like, there's some games I genuinely love, but I just didn't play as much, or I can't place them higher because other things might have knocked it out just a smidge, you know.
Even my mom really liked this and played through it.
I remember that too. Yeah, this was like our game for a while. Like, I remember we had to make through the rotation before I could borrow it.
Yeah.
All right, my number 6, Deucy, Pokemon trading card game for also the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. This is one of those black cartridges which were compatible with both Game Boy and Game Boy Color. There's also Game Boy Color specific cartridges. They're like that clear
Those were cool, yeah.
cartridge, yeah, and those were only working Game Boy Color. But these black cartridges could work on either one, which is really cool and amazing of Nintendo to do that, because I'd imagine anything Pokemon related, they want to make sure that anyone at a Game Boy could experience it as well.
I recently saw this YouTube video that was comparing the black cards, like what they looked like on the different...
You showed me that, yes.
Yeah, Game
I
Boy
remember
Colors
that.
and Game Boy Original, and I was surprised at how much different a lot of these games could be on the two different systems.
Well, you know what? One interesting thing I read or heard recently on a podcast was Wario Land 2. It has a black cartridge that's Game Boy Color, Game Boy Regular. But it's interesting because if you put the game in a Game Boy Color and play it there, it has your one save file. But I guess the way the game is set up on it, it's almost like 2 different ROMs on the cart. So if you put in your Game Boy, you have to overwrite your Game Boy Color slot to play it on that version. It's really weird.
Oof.
It's really weird why they did that.
Am I misremembering? Isn't there also just a gray cart version
There
of
is.
that?
Yeah, they re-released it with like the color enhanced one. Yeah.
That's weird.
It is. But anyway, Pokemon trading card game. I was a Pokemon fanatic at this time.
Yep.
And I was into the card game. It was really hard, obviously, to get my parents to buy me any of the expansion, what do they call them, booster
Decks,
packs.
yeah.
Because I had like the starter kit. I had a whole bunch of Pokemon cards, which I still wish I had today. And I've talked about in the Donkey Kong 64 episode where I tried to buy $70 in Pokemon cards. My parents were like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Buy a game." So this game was like the answer to my parents' prayers and my answer to everything Pokemon trading card related, because it was the entire trading card game condensed into a Game Boy Color. It had all the cards. I played through this game like nothing.
Some of the artwork was even like 1-to-1.
Yeah, it was. And of course it's hard to mimic, a printed card to a Game Boy Color screen, but they did their best. The combat's all there. It sets up, the same format and story as as a regular Pokemon game where you're going through the different gyms to collect badges, except it's a trading card game. You get booster packs. You can make your own decks. It's a great condensed version of the trading card game, and it hasn't aged well now. It's obviously very, very slow. It's a little bit hard to get into, but I revisit it. I just had like a big old smile face because it just took me back to how much I loved that game back then.
I was terrible at it back in the day, and I was terrible at the physical version of it too.
Yeah,
but I did recently revisit it as recent as this year, like sometime in March or April.
Maybe when they re-released it on the Switch app.
That might have been it. Yeah. And then I found it slightly easier. I think I had beaten a couple gyms, which I never did back then.
It's great. I wish they would release. The thing is, like, I always say, wish they would release like a new version of this. But the problem is, like, they have a free-to-play version, so there's no reason they're gonna make, one game that you pay $60 for and has all the decks. Like, the free-to-play version is fun for what it is, but obviously you hit a wall where it's like you have to start buying crap, and I don't want to do that. So I just go back to the train card game, and
Also,
suffer through the slowness.
There's so many generations now that are in, and then they're translated into card
That's
forms.
also true.
And there's so many different card forms that you're like, this is shiny, this is foil, this is shiny foil, this is super turbo. I'm like,
why does this one have different abilities?
Like, I don't, just give me the basics again.
Yeah, so that's also why I love the original train card game so much, is because it goes back to that Gen 1 Pokemon that I'm most familiar with.
Yep.
There's 151, whatever it is, and that's it. You don't have 600 a whole Pokédex to cover and all these cards, and it's just too much. So I like the simplicity of the old game.
Yep.
Other than the fact that I'm just older and don't want to deal with the billion Pokemon cards. All right, Deucy, we're keeping the top 5, so go ahead with your number 5 choice here.
Oh, yeah. So my number 5 has been talked about on an episode before, and I can't remember if I said that I would put it in my top 5 on that one.
We might have. It seems like you would have said something like that.
But I'm glad I stuck with my word just randomly. It is Tiny Toon Adventures, the first one. And I think I said a lot about it in that episode where I just played this a ton, and I can still pick it up today. I proved that, beat it in a sitting.
Yeah.
And it's just like good comfort food.
Yeah, I would say this one is definitely expected to be on your list. I just didn't know where you'd place it, even if you did say maybe, it's top 5 back then. But I would say this was an easy choice for you. My number 5, Deucy, Mega Man Extreme for the Game Boy Color. So I was kind of mulling over, should I put a Mega Man game on there, even though I had like very little familiarity because I only borrowed it from you back then. That's really the only time I could play Mega Man, and the one time I rented Mega Man 1. But I forgot about Mega Man Extreme because it was a Game Boy Color port. I don't call it a port. It's sort of like a what we call it? I guess sort of like a demake almost, or like a reimagining of Mega Man X. And I think also some Mega Man X2 bosses in there. And it's a great version of the game. Like it's a condensed Mega Man X, which
it's sort of like a Game Boy 8-bit version of
a
Super Nintendo game.
Exactly, it is. And it's kind of like how the Mega Man games on Game Boy were, where they kind of took bosses from the 2 current games.
Oh yeah,
and kind of combined them. It looks really good. It has all the the upgrades from Mega Man X. I played this through the end. I think you can unlock the Shoryuken in this one, if I recall correctly. I can't remember. But this one, it's like, once I thought Mega Man was like, I have to put Extreme on there. It's just an easy buy. There's also Extreme 2, which I didn't enjoy as much because I got it much later.
Did that combine X2 and 3?
I think it did because you could play 0 in that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so both those games are really fun. I would hope that they'll get released on the Game Boy app at some point because it'd be really cool to have those.
Oh, that'd be fun, yeah.
Yeah, but they're really fun ports of Mega Man X, so I definitely have to put that in my top 5.
I can't remember if I borrowed this from you, but I remember playing it at your house, and I kind of wish I got more into it.
It's really cool. Like it's weird. Like it's what I would have wanted from a Pro Mega Man X game back then because it felt like it played like it, and of course it's just a smaller screen.
It was only recently that I knew that they combined the bosses like that.
Yeah, yeah, which is unusual, but it works. Like I don't know how they pulled it off, but it ended up working on the Game Boy Color. All right, Deucy, your number 4.
Another one where both of our number 4s sort of fit together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I have the original. It is Wario Land 1, Super Mario Land 3. This one at first wasn't in my top 5, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I played this a ton. I almost played this as much as Super Mario Land 2.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that big. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just really enjoyed this. Was definitely a literal follow-up to Super Mario Land 2. This was a sequel where you just kicked Wario out of your castle as Mario, but Wario's like, I don't want to stop there. I might as well just go get my own. So the whole point of this game is to collect as many coins as possible, and at the end of every level, you throw them into a bank, and then when you beat the game, you also have to look for treasures, which give you a ton more coins. And if you can find, I want to say there's about 20 treasures, like 1 per level or something like that. You find all of those, you combine it with the coins you've collected, and your number at the end of the game shows you what kind of living situation Wario can purchase. It can be anywhere from like a little cottage to a castle that rivals Mario's.
Yeah.
And I just really liked that aspect to it. It wasn't anything where you're Wario trying to kidnap something or anything. It was just all about the greed.
Well, and that's why I think it's such a great game, is because it broke everything you knew about Mario with Wario. Yeah. Like it's a totally different platform experience. Like it's not about, like you said, saving anybody. You're collecting coins. He's greedy. All he wants is just to live in just a nice lavish life like anyone else.
It had some memorable enemies. It had little pirate ducks and everything. That was the other theme about it too. You went to this island that was kitchen themed. Mm-hmm. It was weird. And then like the pirates were also sort of kitchen themed. They were sailing on the SS Teacup. But pirates love treasure too. So you were sort of in a race and a fight with pirates to get the treasure before they could. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the hat system where you could you get a bull hat and he gets stronger, runs faster. The dragon hat was like breathing fire everywhere. The jet hat was awesome. It was better than the bunny ears. Like you could just like jet through the level.
Yeah, it's so it's funny. Like my parallel to Wario Land 1 was the Virtual Boy version, which sounds a lot like what Wario Land 1 was.
Oh yeah,
because I really didn't get to play Wario Land 1 at all. I don't think I borrowed it from you. At least maybe I did once. I can't really remember. But for me it was Virtual Boy Wario Land, which is the best game on the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
Which granted, it's
by
not,
a mile.
It's not hard to do, but it has a lot of those elements where it's like you're seeking all the treasures. It's just Wario taking all the greed. but obviously plays with a virtual boy where you could jump back and forth in different planes. But it's really good. It works with the Wario formula.
There was a code where I forgot what it was, but it involved like pausing and holding some buttons and stuff, and then it allowed you to adjust the HUD on the bottom of your screen, so you could manually change the time left in the level. You could manually change the number of lives you had.
Oh, well, it's like a debug mode or something.
And you could change the number of coins you had.
Wow.
So I would play through a level, and right before the exit, I would enter that and change it to 999 coins.
Oh, my God.
And then when I exited, I would deposit 999 coins every level. It definitely guaranteed me a large castle.
Yeah, you pulled the billionaire gimmick right there. My God.
Yeah.
Infinite money. All right, so that does tie in with my number 4 choice, which is Wario Land 3 for the Game Boy Color. I rented this back then, and I hadn't played Wario Land 2 at all. And I can't remember if I played Wario Land 1 from you or not. I did play Wario Land 2 recently, and it was really, really good. Mm-hmm. But Wario Land 3, I think it's one of those, it's a Game Boy Color only game. And it's a weird platformer because Wario doesn't die in this one. He can't die.
Yeah.
He just gets these different abilities and effects from getting, jumped on by enemies or, hit by enemies. And this game's just like a big puzzle Metroidvania in the sense that you might start in level 1 and you get a key that might unlock something in level 2. And then in level 2, you might get a key that will unlock something in level 1 to another pathway. And there's other keys in there that lead to other levels. And it's really crazy because there's a lot of backtracking, but each of the levels are pretty diverse because each of the challenges involve some sort of different ability you have. Like there's one where, Wario turns into like a zombie, so he's creeping through things.
Yeah.
And, like he can go through floors because he's almost like a ghost. And you have to like go, stand in like a street light to get turned back to regular Wario. Like he can do this weird tumble roll thing where he turns like this tiny, rolling ball, so you can like bowl through boulders and stuff.
You can also like get caught on fire and then you just bum rush everybody while you're on fire.
Yeah, so that's like part of the greatness about this game is like discovering all the abilities he has from all the different things you can do, because ultimately they relate to solving some sort of puzzle. And it also has it continues the gimmick of mini games, because I forgot what Wario Land 1 and 2 had for mini games, but this one has like a putting mini game at the end of the levels. So it's like, depending on how close you sink the putt with, with however many shots, I think you get more coins or something like that, or more treasures. And then beyond that, there's a ton of treasures you can collect as well, based on the stuff you find in the levels, depending on what keys you find and everything else. It's a huge adventure that I don't think I ever finished. I got really far in it. And a lot of people would be critical of it and say it's like, yeah, it's kind of slow, it's kind of boring. I'm like, there's a lot of meat on this game. It's probably overrated and probably overcritical, compared to what people would say.
Yeah, because I've only heard that it's like one of the best Game Boy Color games out there.
It really is, and I've heard some reception about like how it's slow and dated. I'm like, I don't think so. Like I think it's much better than people give credit for.
As far as the Wario Land series goes, they say it's one of the best Wario Land games.
It is. I would like to play 4 though, because I never played 4, and I heard how good that one was. Because you owned it too, right?
I did. I do. It's on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And I don't know where my Game Boy Advance games are.
That's right.
Which sucks.
It's that scavenger hunt we were talking about.
One of these days, I'll just find it in a random box. Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, Wario Land 3 on Game Boy Color, one of my favorites. It's also on the Game Boy Switch app right now, and it looks really nice on there with their emulation. It's a fun game to try out.
I got randied on that one. Like I bought it physical from one of the game shops.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And then like 1 or 2 weeks later, it showed up on the Switch Online.
I remember that, because I was like, hey, you should get that. And you're like, all right. And then we're like, oh, you just willed into existence now, just out of nowhere on the Switch app. Yeah. It's great. All right, Deucy, we're keeping in the top 3 now. So start off with your number 3 here.
The podium finishers. This one probably should be no surprise.
Not for me at all. I knew this was going to be up there.
It is Darkwing Duck on Game Boy.
Great ports.
This one I'm not combining with any of the other Disney Afternoon classics because honestly, I didn't know some of them were even on Game Boy. Like, I didn't know there was a DuckTales one until recently, which I picked up. And there's a Tailspin one that I've never gotten to play.
That's the one I have least familiarity with. Yeah. I don't remember ever hearing about that one.
But Darkwing Duck I definitely owned. My parents knew I really liked the Nintendo version, so they got me both. And this one, I just played a ton. I played it just nonstop in car rides and everything. And unlike the Nintendo one, I could beat this one regularly. It was one of the times where, like we've said it before, where if they shrunk down a game from Nintendo to Game Boy, sometimes it was to its detriment because like your sprite might be too big for the screen and you can't see enemies coming, and it just makes platforming that much difficult. This one made the final boss way easier than the Nintendo version. And so you could just jump around easier, you could dodge the enemies, and then just pelt the last boss with as much special ammo as you had. And I was just like, why couldn't they do this on Nintendo?
Yeah, they're like, we have a chance to fix this.
Yeah.
And we will. Yeah, I figured this was going to be on your list for sure. I just didn't know where. But I knew it was going to be like top 3 because this is definitely one of your favorites. I remember playing this at your house quite a bit, and also the Tiger game.
Yeah.
You had like Darkwing everything back then.
Yep. Even the Darkwing action figures.
Yeah. I do remember all of that. Yeah. My number 3, like I mentioned earlier, Pokemon Blue. So like I mentioned, I got this for my birthday. I was like 13 or something like that. I think it was like 13. I asked for Pokemon Blue and a Game Boy Color, and fortunately Costco had those wonderful bundles where you get like a console and like a popular game. So this was perfect. Kiwi Green, Game Boy Color, Pokemon Blue with the Blastoise in the front. My buddy, whose birthday was 2 days after mine, asked for a Game Boy Color and
Red.
Yeah, and he got Pokemon Red. And I think he got the Barrier or the Teal one. I can't remember, but his mom also got from Costco.
Nice,
because we were hoping to do the link cable thing. And like anyone else at the time, we'd read about this in magazines and we checked it out, and we were just like hooked from right away. It was like a portable RPG. It didn't look like anything special, but there was 150 different pocket monsters you could find and collect, which was like the whole appeal of this thing, because you get to a new area of the world and you have no idea what's going to be in there, and you're encouraged to explore and seek out all the Pokemon that are in the area.
Yeah. And
that doesn't include like, evolving them, all the TMs, like all the moves you could give to them or make them learn. This was it's amazing that 26 years later, it's more popular than ever, when it felt like it was at a fever pitch back then.
And no matter what they add to it, it still boils down to that, where you go to a new area, you run through the tall grass, and you see what new Pokemon are available. Like, I played Let's Go Pikachu on Switch, and it is basically these original Game Boy games, but in, like, updated 3D. And then I played Arceus, which is, like, fully open world, but also still boils down to new area, tall grass.
Yeah, it's just the excitement of like not knowing what you're going to find. And it's great that Arceus finally shook up the formula where it feels like it's the proper evolutionary step for Pokemon.
Yeah.
Versus doing like the 3D versions of the 1998 games.
Yeah.
But Pokemon Blue is obviously where it started for a lot of people. Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, Yellow, whatever you want to call them. Like that era with Gold and Silver is like what, set Pokemon into the zeitgeist and into like just mainstream media. So for me, I may not have like a ton of regular standard Game Boy games. This was that close to the top because of the impact it had in my life, and like just the impact it had just on the world. Like freaking Pokemon was amazing back then.
Yeah. I even remember when I got my yellow, because I got it way after you had yours, that we then did the link cable.
Yeah.
And you helped boost my, even though I wasn't very far into the game, you helped boost my Pokemon with like the ones that could evolve by trading.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I had this like
I remember
overpowered team.
I was like, here you go, here's some extra Pokemon.
And like I was only in like the 4th or 5th city, and all of a sudden I was just mowing through the bad guys.
And that's what I mean. That's what's also great is like each version only had certain Pokemon that were available on the other version. So it, again, encouraged you to play with your friends and try to collect Pokemon that you didn't have on your carts.
Yeah.
Unless you use Game Genie, of course. But, I only did that from you. I didn't use that for anything else. But it's just a fantastic game. Like, there's so many memories rooted into it. It looks good on the Game Boy, on the Super Game Boy and Game Boy Color. I think you could do the palette change thing. But there's no way I couldn't put this on my list. No way.
Oh, yeah. I remember that on Super Game Boy, like each new town had a new overall tint to it.
Yeah, it was great. So Nintendo did everything right, and they struck gold with this, to put it lightly. Yeah. All right, Deucy, the top 2. This is one where both our choices matched up perfectly. So I guess we just kind of meld our choices together here.
I was gonna say this is that meme of Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers doing
the bicep the bicep high five,
because our 1 and 2 are exactly the same. Our number 2 is Super Mario Land 2.
Yeah, easy choice.
We just talked about it. And then our number 1 could be the only thing that passes Mario Land 2, and that's Metal Gear Solid for Game Boy Color.
I'm actually surprised this was your number 1, to be honest, because I knew you were going to put this on your list.
Yeah.
And I knew instantly this was going to be on my list at number 1, but I'm surprised you put your 1.
I mean, for James Bond, I said I didn't replay it as much as these other ones, but for Metal Gear Solid, this, like, stuck with me, even though I had only played it a couple times. And it was probably one of my, like I said, I only owned 4 Game Boy Color games, and it was probably the first one I got, and also the one that lasted with me the longest. I just couldn't stop thinking about it or talking about it. And for that reason, it had to go up that high.
Yeah, it's so to get some background of this, it was released in May 2000. It's broken up into 13 stages, and this game actually takes place about 7 years after Outer Heaven, the whole incident there on the MSX version of Metal Gear 1, like the original Metal Gear. And in this game, a guerrilla group called the Gindra Liberation Front, they've stolen the Metal Gear prototype called Gander, which is a weird name. It's kind of just reminds me of geese for some reason.
Yep.
And you explore their headquarters in an area called, I think it's Galud or Gallowade. I can't pronounce that. It's a weird word.
I think it's Galloway.
Gallowade, something like that. Yeah. And then they've kind of taken up their headquarters in the former Outer Heaven. So these GLF members, they all have different codenames that are sort of similar to Foxhound, which is the original sort of villain group of Metal Gear Solid 1. There's Blackguard's Viper, Slash Hawk, Marionette Owl, Pyro Bison, which all sound like Mega Man
I was about
bosses.
to say, Mega Man X bosses for sure.
Yeah. So this game is a condensed version of Metal Gear Solid on PS1, even though it has a totally different story that's unrelated to it. But all of the elements of Metal Gear Solid are in there. So it's like you have the sneaking, you have, sort of stung you up against a wall.
The reason I really enjoyed this for being just a portable game was it was like the Metal Gear on PlayStation, but with the Metal Gear of Nintendo.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Graphics and, just levels and stuff like that.
It's what the Nintendo version should have been back then. We finally got it 10, 15 years later, where the hell it was, on 2000.
I mean, I've always talked about how I want Metal Gear 1 and 2 remade, not just ported and remastered, but like totally remade. And even if they went as little as this Game Boy Color / Advance type of remake, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this game is, I don't know where people kind of put it. I can't really get a barometer for how people feel about this game. I don't know if
some people don't even know
it. Yeah,
I don't even know it exists.
I assume most wouldn't exist because it was 2000, which again is pre Game Boy Advance. And it's also, people might have a wrong idea about a condensed Metal Gear on a Game Boy Color screen, even though it's one of the best Game Boy Color games you'll see. And it probably uses the hardware, one of the best on anything of any other developer. I think the developer for this was Tosei. I can't recall what they've done off the top of my head, but I know they're a pretty notable developer for Game Boy and just Nintendo in general. And it's a pretty beefy game. So there's those 13 stages, and they all have a story with cutscenes and codecs interspersed in between them. There's about 180 VR training missions, which is crazy because I don't remember if I did all of them. I did a ton of these things. And there's all different categories and challenges. Like there's some where, you might have to sneak through an area undetected or, take out enemies that are in the area. There's weapon ones where you have to use a specific weapon to get through a VR training area.
I remember, like on PlayStation, they had an entirely separate game that was nothing but the VR missions.
Yeah, it was just called VR missions.
I played that a ton.
Me too. I played also because you plays the ninja in there too.
Yeah.
It was called Metal Gear Solid Integral in Japan. I guess that a lot of the levels in Metal Gear Solid Game Boy Color, which, by the way, it's also called Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel overseas. I don't know what the significance of that is.
Kind of an awesome name.
It is a pretty badass name. Yeah. But I guess a lot of the VR missions from the Game Boy Color one are adapted from the PS1 VR missions, which, again, is an amazing feat to begin with.
That makes sense.
You're talking PS1 to Game Boy Color. And there's also a mode I forgot about that was a 2-player link cable mode, which I recall playing with at least my friend Brandon. I want to say we did at least once.
I feel,
briefly.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool mode where you use the link cable and you have to destroy 3 drones before your opponent does, and you also have to get to the goal or upload it or something like that. There's some mode like that, but it's basically like a race to the finish of. I'm sure that the placements are randomized, but it's a cool 2-player mode. There's nothing exciting or incredible, but it's just another added thing to this amazing game.
Yeah.
And beyond all of that, there's a prevailing theory that the entirety of Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel was a VR mission that Raiden went through before Metal Gear Solid 2. Which
that's awesome.
Is amazing. Because the story in this game, it's not necessarily canon, but it's a very Metal Gear story, just with Viper and Foxhound and the GLF, the gorillas who are just like Foxhound, really.
And it has similar story beats to Metal Gear Solid 1.
It does. It very closely follows it. So I totally would buy that this is an AI adaptation of a simulation of the Metal Gear Solid mission. And also the references to it in Metal Gear Solid 2 when the Colonel's AI fails in Arsenal. He babbles and he says, he tells Raiden, your combat capability is now undoubtedly beyond Snake at the time of Galuwad's fall.
Oh.
So he directly references Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel without really explicitly saying it was a VR mission.
Whoa, I don't even remember that.
Me neither.
He had a lot of memorable babbles. And
Exactly.
I don't remember that line.
And that's the thing, is like that's what makes it amazing, because it's an AI and just babbling, you're just assuming that. Like you might pay attention to some things he picks out. But unless you really played the Game Boy Color version before this, or you had so much familiarity with it, I'd never caught that until I was reading up on it. I was like, holy crap, like I could totally see the connection.
I wonder, I bet I played Solid 2 before I played this one on Game Boy.
It's totally possible.
Even though they released when they did.
Yeah, well, I know I got this on release because I vividly remember going to that Target in our town, and I remember getting it over there because I remember I went to a little where they had the hot bar where they had like food.
Oh,
I got an icy or something because I was like, this is part of my little trip. I got Metal Gear Solid and an icy.
I definitely got this with my Game Boy Color. Like this was my first game that I got.
Oh, I know it was your first one.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So excellent freaking game, and just the fact that the lore might be connected to the bigger Metal Gear epic story just makes it that much sweeter to me.
Yeah.
It's such a great little twist that whether or not it's true, I don't really care. I'm going to believe it's true. I want to believe that Raiden went through the simulation of Metal Gear Solid 1 through Ghost Babel.
But it would be even funnier if he was playing it on a Game Boy.
Oh, yeah, of course. That would be even more hilarious if that was the joke.
They sat him in a large room with one chair and a Game Boy in his hands.
And all you hear is the dead silence except the blips of the Game Boy and like the buttons pressing, Yeah, if only. If only we could get that, Kojima. So that'll do it for us, Deucy. We covered a lot of Game Boy games, a lot of awesome stuff. I think we had a pretty solid top 3 overall. I'm especially happy with Mario Land 2 and especially Metal Gear Solid 1. Metal Gear Solid, I should say, for Game Boy Color. So any final thoughts on the Game Boy or any of the games we talked about, Deucy? Anything you want to fill in before we go?
I just really, really like the Game Boy. And I guess I forgot about it for a little while. But now I'm glad that they've had the Switch Online resurgence. And I've been finding more games at shops. That was another thing too. Game shops, like for having classic games, they didn't always have a ton of Game Boy games.
They were kind of hard to find. Like, and also I think you'd always see the common games, right? You'd always see like a Mario Land or like a baseball or something, right?
Mario Land 2 was also common for a while there. So even if you did see it, I was like, well, I already own these. Mm-hmm. But no, it's been great to get back into them, and like I said, it's perfect that they're on the Switch because I already play so much portable on the Switch. This is the genesis of that. And it's great to revisit a lot of things or just play a lot of them for the first time ever. And they don't lose anything in the time. It's been 30 years, almost 40. Like, they don't lose anything in the translation.
Yeah, a lot of them aged very well. Of course, you can make a case for tons of games that don't age from that era, especially on Game Boy. But there's some that do age really well, and I think it is really cool, like you said, that it's pretty crazy that we have the Switch, which is the portable system now. That and the Steam Deck are probably the two notable, but Switch is obviously much more successful, right?
Yeah.
But you have the Game Boy games, which were the origins of the Switch 3.5 decades ago.
Yeah.
And you're playing them on sort of the modernization of that console from back then. So it's really incredible for us because we've lived through it, Like, like we're playing on a Switch, but we're playing Game Boy games we played as, like 1992.
The irony is not lost on me that, like, while I was playing Game Boy back then, I really wanted portable Nintendo and Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that was always the hook.
And then when Game Boy Advance came out, we did sort of get portable Super Nintendo, even some portable Nintendo with the Classic series. And now on the Switch with all these like high-powered games, I'm like, I want more classic Game Boy games portable on my system.
It's like you said, it's kind of like that comfort food thing, Like, you could get into it for a few minutes. You don't have to bite into it too much, You just get your dabbles, get your fix, and get out,
Also, save states really help everything.
Also, that's true, too. That has changed my way of life for some of these old games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone else out there has some of your favorite Game Boy games, or you just want to chat us up about some Game Boy stuff, Game Boy Color, anything you want, send us an email at LegionGamingPod@gmail.com. And of course, we post our goodies on Instagram at Legion Gaming Podcast. Deucy, any final words for our friends going off from the portable lands of Game Boy and all of the history of histories?
Press start to continue.